Godzilla! Save the Earth! Melee!
Hey everyone, it's Goji Rex. I'm very excited to be here because today, I finally get to show you some of the many things that we've been working on. And in this showcase, we'll mainly be focusing on gameplay mechanics and changes. The development of this game is forever evolving, and huge changes are made to it daily. As you can see, Kiryu actually looks quite a bit different in this version than he did in the previous. This demonstration will utilize Kiryu and Destoroyah as a vessel to showcase some of the many universal mechanics and changes to this game. And then we'll delve a little bit deeper into both characters and look at just some of their changes. We picked these characters because you've already seen them before, and not all of the characters are in a fully presentable state yet. Some of them have their model and texture done but have no gameplay changes, while some are the complete opposite. Full change logs for both of these characters can be found in the description below, and they're incredibly long and detailed. So if that interests you, again, those can be found below. The first things we'll look at are changes to the environment itself, which is a hugely important part of the game and impacts the pace of the game in many, many ways. Something you may have noticed about the sneak peek is that there are no power-ups present. We didn't remove them from the game, but there is a way to disable them in the main menu. The mode I'm currently using is competitive. There are also many other gameplay modifiers that we've added, which will be gone over in depth at a later date. But we will reveal a few more environmental-related modes. There's a no buildings mode, no barriers, free camera, third-person camera, and the Destroy All Monsters melee camera. There are a ton of modifiers to the gameplay itself, but we've decided to keep those a secret for the time being. Just know that we're huge fans of Destroy All Monsters melee and its various gameplay cheats and modifiers, and we think it's a real shame that they didn't make it into Save the Earth. Characters are now able to jump, dodge, and do any action in deep water. The military is enabled all the time, whether you're on default or competitive, as they are a great piece of atmosphere. However, they no longer do any damage or flinch to the player. Military units are now rightfully ineffective against giant monsters. Buildings have a ton of mechanical changes, so bear with me here as I go over all of them. To start off, they now have much, much less health. Beams can completely decimate a city and level whole areas of it, and physical attacks destroy them in much less hits than before. Jabs will usually take 2 to 3 hits, but strong attacks will destroy buildings almost instantly. Buildings also now always collapse, and when they do, they crash into other buildings, which cause them to become destroyed as well. A collapsing building will no longer knock the player over. They also collapse a lot more slowly, giving them a bit more weight. The particle effects for destruction also linger a lot longer than they did before. When a monster is thrown into a building in Save the Earth, they do a splat and slide down that's fully invincible, meaning they can't be hit after impacting with a building. But now, when a monster is thrown into a building, they are technically in an airborne state, meaning they can be hit normally, making a building sort of a one-time use barrier. In terms of throwable buildings, they now do less damage, can't be thrown as far, and have a more natural throwing arc. But they have a variety of buffs. The act of throwing a building or object now has much less end lag, making even simple things like tanks and small objects combo starters. This mechanic makes the game feel and look a lot better. It's sort of hard to explain, but basically, the fade value between animations has been greatly overlapped. It's called damn smoothing because this was a mechanic that was in Destroy All Monsters Melee, but was mostly absent in Save the Earth. This mechanic has been added to every single animation for every single character. As you can see, the game is a lot smoother overall. Many people prefer Destroy All Monsters Melee over Save the Earth, and say that it feels a lot better to play. I believe this mechanic is why. The stuns work a bit differently in STEM. Overall, because of the fast-paced nature of the game and its more extensive combos, stuns needed to be toned down. Breaking out of a free stun will now play a brief recovery animation instead of the 3-second long roar. Tasing stuns now drain energy at half the rate that they used to, and pressing block will cancel the recovery animation of a stun or a tase. In Save the Earth, all attacks had super armor, meaning the animation can't be interrupted by other attacks. This is no longer the case. Characters can now cancel attacks and their input combos by pressing block or low block. Before, this block interrupt would freeze the player in place for up to 2 seconds. Now, you can cancel an input combo and return to idle by simply pressing block. Attacks can be canceled before the hitbox comes out, including attacks within input combos, which will cancel the end lag of the previously inputted attack. The aerial juggle limit has been changed from 3 hits to 7 hits, making combos much more extensive. Characters can now change their direction during mini animations, including jumps, hops, run jumps, rolling, and much more. Usually character-specific things like Kiryu's throws. Characters can now do their aerial attacks out of their run jump. As of right now, each character only has 1 aerial attack implemented to their long jump. Whether or not it'll be possible to add all 3 of them to their long jump remains to be seen, but I will try. Hex editing loves to throw limitations at us. When jumping or hopping through the air, it's now possible to cancel these empty jumps back into idle and recover from the landing immediately. This is done by pressing block or low block. It's possible to input this cancel the moment your character touches the ground, and the window remains until the very end of the animation. So the skill gap comes with just how much landing lag you're going to be able to shave off of your jumps. It's not really possible to miss this input in the traditional sense. Get-up options and grounded gameplay has changed greatly. There's a ton to cover here, as Disadvantage plays much differently than it does here in vanilla. To start with, all get-up attacks are now blockable. Neutral get-up now has 2 different versions, slow and fast. Slow neutral get-ups done by pressing block when on the ground are invulnerable to attacks. Fast get-ups are not, but they are a much faster option for getting up off the ground and returning to the fight. After being launched, you eventually collide with the ground. During this collision animation, there is now a very brief window at the start of it where you can do a get-up option instantly and avoid being stuck on the ground altogether. This window is small, only about 4 frames, and you can miss it and be stuck on the collision animation. There are a few different versions of teching depending on what button you press, and they are all useful for different situations or reading what your opponent is trying to do to you during a tech chase. Soft tech is fast and is done by pressing L2 or X while colliding with the ground. You can also press L2 or X as well as a direction to roll in the desired direction. Finally, you can press block while impacting with the ground to do a hard tech. This is similar to the invulnerable getup and is useful for powering through aggressive opponents who try to spike you as you hit the ground. But be warned, you can be grabbed out of this. Grabs are now a much faster event in general. The goal with grabs was to make them feel like they're part of the game and retain the flow of the match, whereas before, they kind of brought the match to a screeching halt. The grab lift animation is universally 50% faster. Because of the faster lift animation, it made mashing out of a grab much harder, if not impossible. So the mash interval has been increased greatly, meaning it's easier to mash out of a grab. However, if a grab successfully lands, the player is always able to get out of throw every time. The mashing comes into play when they walk around for stage positioning. Also, if you noticed, when a character gets grabbed, they now always struggle instead of remaining stiff and motionless. The actual mash animation was increased in speed in order to differentiate mashing versus not mashing. Mechagodzilla 3 has officially been retired from the game and replaced with Kiryu. He plays far differently. One of the fastest characters in the game, Kiryu focuses primarily on fast, grounded combos. In my opinion, he's the most solid, well-rounded character in the game with no real glaring weaknesses. Kiryu excels at rushing the opponent down and abusing his speed to get a combo going. His running movement speed has increased greatly. His grab is faster, and he can now input throws out of them instantly when grabbing. His throws are also much faster as well, and he can change the direction of his flying kick and his forward flight. He now jumps, flies, and lands much faster than before, making him more mobile in the air. His normal attacks now all connect together, allowing for some extensive grounded combo strings. His Maser beams have been changed a lot in both appearance and balancing. Kiryu's guided missiles are faster and fire in short bursts instead of all at once. When out of missile ammo, he will now use a new mechanic called the railgun. He also fires as twin railguns on many of his attacks as well. Kiryu has a new attack in the form of Maser Bite, which saps some of the opponent's energy. It can also hit opponents who are laying on the ground. Kiryu no longer possesses the jet sweep attacks, further differentiating him from Super Mechagodzilla. Instead, his down special is now the Tri-Maser Cannon. His facing away special is no longer the jet sweep either, but rather the sword strike. He also ignites his sword during his jump punch. He's also capable of igniting his sword with his new taunt, and it stays on his body, and was actually created on complete accident, as I wanted his taunt to be a quick sword ignition. Though, it's pretty cool, and when I saw it remain on his hand, I figured I might as well leave it in. It goes away when you're hit. Kiryu's flying weapon attack is now the twin interlocking rockets. These rockets don't require or consume any ammo, so he can use them as much as he wants. However, they only track the opponent at a certain range. Destoroyah is enormous. Destoroyah is this game's heavy hitter. His health has been buffed and his movement slowed down. His combos aren't very extensive, usually only being 2 to 3 hits, but his damage output is insane. Power comes at a cost with slow mobility, and his large size makes him a much easier target. As you can see, Destoroyah is much bigger and slower than he used to be. He also borrows a few animations from Destroy Monsters Melee. His orbs still have as much broken utility as they did before, but their energy cost has been increased from 2 to 5, so we can only have 2 orbs out at once. Their angle has been adjusted to be a more valuable tool for combos, and he can still do his crazy orb setups. As sad as I was to see it go, his jab infinite has been removed. This goes for all currently discovered infinites in the game. They've been patched out. During Destoroyah's Horn Katana, he now lunges forward during his second swing. His sky-to-ground strike is slower, but has more damage and knockback. And when he's low on energy, his horn attacks still have a hitbox, albeit a very weak physical one, The aerial tail whip is now faster, and its animation has been tweaked to allow it to hit much more consistently. His micro-oxygen beams now function much differently. Instead of being a stream of gas that occasionally has lightning, it's now the opposite. Its damage and knockback output ramps up the closer he is to the opponent. He has some new roars and taunts, some of which were taken directly from Destoroyah Monster's melee. That is not everything with these characters, as this video would be an hour long if it were. But I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and we can't wait to do more of these in the future with more overhauled characters. Thank you so much for watching.
Godzilla, save the Earth! Melee!
Floodgates.
Fuck.
God, I got lost.
I don't know.
Here's an airplane. Choo!
Bro, holy fuck. That was so mean.